Welcome to Sasquatch and Sourdough, the podcast where we embark on a journey into the depths of the unknown.
The mystery of life.
Weaving together threads of ancient scripture.
What do you mean, biblical?
Tales of high strangeness.
Tell them about the Twinkie.
Whether you're a seeker of truth,
We believe it's the heart of the house.
or simply hungry for a good story,
What about the Twinkie?
Sasquatch and Sourdough invites you to join us on a journey of discovery, wonder, and deliciousness.
They feel your methods, your theories are...
Spooky.
So grab your backpack, sharpen your senses,
Do you think I'm spooky?
and prepare to explore the sacred mysteries of our highly strange world like never before.
And that is the whole problem with aliens.
Chapter 4, 1902, Human Monster Yells at Ice Skaters in Idaho. Out of all the newspaper accounts printed in the past, this remains a highly intriguing report, conjuring up images you would expect to find in a fantasy children's picture book, perhaps smiling children happily gliding across an ice skating rink who look up and see a friendly Sasquatch. But then the account turns violent and you realize this is not a story with a cheery ending. Well, welcome back to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I am your host, Christina, and it is Christmas time around the pod. I hope you guys are having an awesome Christmas season. I hope you're not too overscheduled and oversugared. I feel like that's kind of what's been going around our house lately. So the season can really be challenging, especially if you are facing a loss or maybe an unexpected diagnosis. There's a lot of different stories that we've been hearing from a lot of our listeners, and I just really wanted to take the time to encourage you guys that you're not alone out there. So if you need prayer or if you have any stories, especially any kind of cool Christmas stories, you can go ahead and keep sharing those on the encounter map, or you can email the show at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com. But my main kind of theme here tonight is going to be Christmas with Sasquatch. I thought, we're all probably in our kitchen making fun recipes or traveling, or, you're out and about, whatever you're doing, you probably want to get away from the news and be, a little cheered or maybe just a little brain candy. And I'm hoping that that's what this episode will be. So what I've done is I've kind of just gone and compiled a couple fun encounters that I found either on the BFRO, the Monsters Among Us book, which again, I highly recommend. And then my new favorite book that I found, thanks to Sasquatch Chronicles with Wes Germer. He has the best guests on there, and I'm going to link that in the description. But there's a fantastic book called Skating with Bigfoot, and it's by Rene Decair. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, forgive me. I've been trying to find her online. She doesn't really have much of an online presence, but what she's done is, she's just a gal after my own heart. She's gone and compiled just way back, 150, it says for the past 150 years, reports have come from the West of hair-covered, unusually large ape-like monster men in the forest. This book tells the stories published in newspapers, which were the record keepers of their day. So I absolutely loved that episode. I actually had a good time in the car just listening to that episode and some of the accounts. But I wanted to just kind of take some time and give you guys a couple of fun accounts that I pulled. Maybe not so fun for the people that experienced them, but just like I said, maybe some Christmas brain candy while you guys are getting your holiday cheer on. And so this is from her book. This is from chapter 4, and the encounter is a 1902 human monster yells at ice skaters in Idaho. Out of all the newspaper accounts printed in the past, this remains a highly intriguing report, conjuring up images you would expect to find in a fantasy children's picture book, perhaps smiling children happily gliding across an ice skating rink who look up and see a friendly Sasquatch. But then the account turns violent and you realize this is not a story with a cheery ending. In 1902, residents in southeastern Idaho would drive their wagons in cold months to socialize and ice skate on the frozen Portneuf River, which is a 124-mile-long tributary of the more famous Snake River. The river east of Twin Falls, Idaho, and near the Wyoming border, today is a recreational hubbub in southern Idaho, popular with rafters and kayakers. In the year 2024, a short drive north will land you at a restaurant named Bigfoot Pizza. Okay, cute. So this goes on to say, occurring 22 years after the grizzly bear hunters encounter in Oregon, an account is published in the January 28, 1902 version of the Astoria, Oregon paper, The Morning Astorian. It details sightings of a Sasquatch that residents of Idaho and Bannock County have with a human monster described as 8 feet tall with long hair. Said to be terrorizing the town of Chesterfield and surrounding areas, the creature is reported to have been seen by ice skaters on the Portneuf. Quote, he was first seen on January 14th when he appeared among a party of young people skating. The article reports, the creature, flourishing a great club and uttering blood-curdling yells, started to attack the skaters, but the latter managed to reach their wagons and drove at breakneck speed from the river. Later, a group of armed citizens returned to the spot and saw tracks in the snow, 22 inches long and 7 inches wide. 20 armed men were sent to capture the human monster. The article states he was believed to be from the Sawtooth Mountains, the home of, quote, various types of monsters. Regrettably, no follow-up to the story could be found. Perhaps it was intrigued by the sight of short, hairless monsters gliding across the frozen water. So again, I would definitely highly recommend. This is probably like a great stocking stuffer idea for any fan of cryptids or Bigfoot or anything else that's weird. I mean, hey, if you guys are here, this is probably a book for your stocking. So again, Skating with Bigfoot, super well researched, and I mean, it's just really cute. Just the idea of skating with Bigfoot. So the next encounter that I found, and like I said, I just kind of wanted to jump on and do some quick reporting of maybe some interesting incidents that have happened around Christmas. So this is this source here is from the BFRO. Definitely another highly recommended resource that we are always talking about here on the pod. And this was reported in the year 2012 in December. And this is actually coming from Michigan. We have a lot of listeners from Michigan. So, hey guys out there. And the county is going to be Grand Traverse County. And so this is how the account starts. Quote, my wife and I rented a snowmobile for the day after Christmas from Rudolph Ranch near Traverse City, Michigan. Our first exploration on the trip were the trails from the ranch to Traverse City. We traveled through some forest to a high wire clearing that we felt had not too much rugged terrain to continue. We came to the first road in the high wire clearing and decided to turn around. I was driving and my wife was riding in the passenger seat. After turning around, I looked across 2 hills from which we had just come and noticed what appeared on first impression to be a cross-country skier 200 yards away, coming down the second hill away from us. Immediately, many things bothered me about this cross-country skier. First, it was a male and it was extremely tall, maybe 8 to 9 feet, oh my gosh, in height. It was very male because it had wide shoulders and a slim waist. shape. Second, he appeared to traverse the steep downhill slope like a downhill skier, attacking the slope in parallel skier motions, but in very long footsteps instead of sliding skis in downhill parallel motion. No skis were noticed. Third, and most puzzling, was that the figure was dark, dirty, rusty red from top of the head to bottom of foot, except for the face, which was jet black. Finally, the figure appeared very unnatural in movement. The entire sighting lasted a total of maybe 5 seconds. As I drove back over the area where I saw the figure, I looked intently for cross-country ski tracks. I found none. We also did not come across a skier, and the area at the bottom of the hill dumped into a very thick wooded area blocked by a barbed wire fence. At the time, I thought about stopping and looking for footprints, but was afraid of asking my wife if she saw what I thought I had just seen, so I moved on. Oh. Whatever I saw bothered me all day. Later in the evening, I asked my wife if she noticed the cross-country skier, which I had seen. She had not seen the skier. When I walked her through the event and told her that I think I saw a Bigfoot, she just laughed and continued to laugh at me to this day. Oh, I'm sorry about that, mister. Because that sounds just terrifying. And he goes on to say, the sighting has continued to bother me. Over a month later, I'm convinced that what I saw was too tall, was not clothed naturally, and moved too unnaturally to be a human. This account is on our encounter map if you go to sasquatchandsourdough.com. But there is a link in the description below I'm going to put of the in the actual BFRO case, because there's a really good follow-up investigation from the investigator. Her name was Kim Fleming. So she's a BFRO investigator, and she actually went to the site. The guy who originally reported it was not from the area. It seems like they were vacationing, and he's actually from Washington State. So, so she actually, contacted him and followed up, and she found some really interesting, let's see here. Oh, so she says that, the witness, he resides in Seattle, and he was an avid fly fisherman who is very familiar with wildlife sightings, including grizzly bears. He said that it was not a bear. It was bipedal. It walked upright like a man, taking huge strides. So I guess that's probably why, it didn't look as natural, that what you would see as a cross-country skier rather. Its arms were long, hands falling at or below the knee. The witness watched the figure cross the trail and disappear over the ravine into a cedar swamp. The witness had to travel back over the area where the figure crossed, but he did not want to stop and look for tracks. His wife was on the snowmobile with him, but she did not see the figure. Okay, so that was already in the original account. But so as she follows up, she found actually some really interesting wood structure pictures. So I'm going to put those in the description because it's pretty wild looking what she found. So thank you to the BFRO. It's always so fun to go through their database, and their investigators do a lot of really good, solid research and trying to follow up with some of these witnesses. So we're always thankful to them. In Maryland, which is where I'm from, in 1996, we had an incredible blizzard, and I think most people, will remember it just because if you're my age, you were in middle school, and I mean, the snow came up to like our porch. It was really the most snow that we had ever seen in our little town. And I remember what kind of reminded me of that, just skating with Bigfoot. There was a book that I had gotten out of the library while we were snowed in, and I cannot find it to this day. So I'm kind of hoping that anybody out there might recognize this story. But they're in the book. I don't know if it was actually real stories or if it was just somebody's, imagination. It kind of was more of a Yeti or an abominable snowman, because in the story, and I don't know if it was a collection of stories or what, because I was in middle school and I would just kind of love the idea of being like tucked up and reading about this creature. But it was such a terrifying tale. And the way that I remember it going is that they were snowed in, and there was this creature that was kind of stalking them from the outside. And they didn't know exactly what to do or if they could capture it. And I remember there was one part where the little boy's dad just took whatever like bacon, just like uncooked bacon that they had in their house, and threw it in the garage, like closed the garage door. And I think that was like kind of where I stopped reading. I don't know why, but I don't know if they ever caught it or if it just, disappeared or took the bacon and ran. But if that sounds familiar to you, please, somebody tell me what that story was, because I have been on the hunt ever since. Way back in 1982, in the winter December months, in Virginia, Henry County. So this is actually the nearest town is Fielddale, Virginia. And this is going to be the nearest road is Route 57. This is another fantastic resource from the BFRO. This witness, he says, I had gotten up in the middle of the night to get a drink. After leaving the kitchen, I went to the back door to look out the window. There is a road about 100 yards from the back of my house with a dusk to dawn light that is still in the same location today. As I stood there, I noticed something start up the bank toward the road from our field. It cleared the road in one stride. I cannot give any clear physical dimensions because of the distance and being night. But because of the dusk to dawn light, I could tell that it was not a man. It had wide shoulders and long arms and was hairy. I stood there frozen for a moment and kept looking to see if it would return. After a few moments, I went back to bed. I don't know how he went back to bed. This does not end here. The next day, I went next door to my great-grandmother's house to check on her. During our conversation, she looked at me and said, I started to call you last night. What for was my response. Someone was standing outside my window around 3 a.m. When she said this, the hair stood up on my neck. Before I could say anything else, she looked at me square in the eye and said, he was big. He was as tall as the top of my window. My great-grandmother's home was built in the late 1800s and had the old 4-foot-tall windows. He says, I stand 6'3", and the top of the window inside the house was over my head. Outside from the ground level, this person would had to have been close to 8 feet tall. I then proceeded outdoors, where I found a large section of grass had been flattened outside her window. There was only one footprint. It was in the direction... let's see here. There was only one footprint, and it was in the direction it would have been walking to the road. The print was approximately 18 inches long and about 8 inches wide. I never told my great-grandmother what I saw the night before, and to my knowledge, she never mentioned this to anyone else. This incident is as clear today as it was 28 years ago. I never heard any stories from anyone else in the area. I have kept trying to play this off as a hoax, but it just doesn't make any sense. Why would someone go to all that trouble to hoax a sighting for the possibility of being seen by one 88-year-old woman? So, oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, but great-grandmother, that's just terrible. And then there is a good follow-up here as well. Let's see here. So there was a follow-up. I'm going to link this in the description as well. So there's a follow-up report by BFRO investigator DK. And so this report says, after speaking with the witness MH for nearly an hour on the phone, the following details can be added to this report. When the witness looked out his window, he saw motion in his peripheral vision. and turned in time to see a tall, upright creature swiftly scale the very steep road bank. The creature stepped up the bank, estimated to be about 8 feet high, and placed a foot at the top and on the road grade. It reached out with its right hand and gripped the concrete rail of the small bridge abutment, then fluidly swung up onto the road. In one stride, its opposite foot stepped across the 2-lane road, Appalachian Drive, far enough that with the very next step, it was descending the steep bank on the opposite side and disappearing from view. Oh my goodness. So this thing just kind of like stepped over the road and then swung itself over. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And it says the entire observation lasted 5 seconds and was illuminated by a street light immediately adjacent to the scene. I just love, they really take the time, obviously, to make these folks feel heard, but also their follow-up questioning is just fantastic. So I can never give them enough credit for what they come up with. Get to, a physical description here. It had no neck. The head blended straight into the shoulders. The shoulders were very wide, half as wide as the creature was tall. It was thick-waisted, broad from shoulders to hip, not tapered like an athlete. It was a very bulky creature. Let's see here. The hair color was black under the street light. The weight was estimated at 750 to 800 pounds. Oh my goodness. And in the morning, he goes on to say his great-grandmother greeted him in an uncharacteristically serious manner and told him something big had been outside her window at 3 a.m. the night before. It stood upright and its head reached the top of her bedroom window. She repeated, "It was big." From the outside of her home, the top of that window was about 8 feet above ground level. Let's see, what else does it say? He went outside to look around. Okay, so he just kind of confirms what the experiencer MH had already talked about in the encounter. And so he says, the investigator says, after our conversation, I used Google Street View to examine the scene of the incident and confirmed MH's description of the environment. The bridge abutment described above carries Appalachian Drive over Daniels Creek, and the street light is immediately south of the bridge. So that is wild. So that's from Virginia. If you can corroborate this story, or maybe you've had an experience yourself over in Henry County, Virginia, then you can always email the show. We'd love to hear from you. And it's always funny, I guess during this time of year, I always feel like I'm kind of stuck in two worlds. I love being cozy in my house and doing all kinds of fun Christmas crafts and cooking and just really, shifting the atmosphere and environment in my house. And then when I go outside, it just seems like you're always kind of battling between the consumerism and, all the overindulgence that can really come with this holiday without actually really just remembering what it's all about. So I kind of wanted to just remind us of that. I know sometimes it can be overwhelming. Like I said, we're kind of stuck in this dark phase of winter, and we just sometimes need some hope. Well, I have a really great book that I've been reading throughout the year. I absolutely love it. It's called This Homeward Ache. And it's by Amy Lee, not the same Amy Lee from Evanescence. It's a different one. But she has a great, great book, and it's called This Homeward Ache, How Our Yearning for the Life to Come Spurs on Our Life Today. And I just love this passage that I found. I wanted to share with you guys as a little bit of encouragement. So she actually she borrows a lot from Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and she writes this beautiful book. And in her book, she has just this little observation that I wanted to share with you guys. And so she says, quote, "We live in a story of epic proportions, no matter how easily we forget it. And the same Bible that opens our eyes to this immense reality also gives us plain direction as about how its war is to be waged. Our myth involves an arsenal of the ordinary, promised prayers, earnestly prayed, hidden fasting, secret giving, the continual laying down of our own interests, an open-minded welcome to children, provisions for the poor, endurance in trial, and a faithfulness in all these and similar acts, so that when Christ returns, he will find us going about his work. I absolutely just love that passage from This Homeward Ache by Amy Lee. I really just it was something that I really just personally needed to hear, because I think sometimes during this holiday we can get tossed and torn around, and we can kind of keep our eyes off of the light and the promise that is Jesus, and that is, the whole point of this celebration that we embark on. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. It's another great stocking stuffer. So I guess this is kind of turning into a Christmas wish list for some folks. Okay, so this is another encounter from the BFRO, and this took place in 2022 in December, and this is actually from Potter County, Pennsylvania. And so this says the nearest town is Austin, Pennsylvania, nearest road Cemetery Lane. This sighting occurred at my family hunting camp in Austin, Pennsylvania, while participating in the late muzzle-loading deer season. We were doing an evening hunt to begin at 2 p.m. While I was in the tree stand near a small clearing, my father and grandfather were pushing from the north and west. The hunt was quiet and uneventful up until legal shooting hours ended around 5:15. By this time, I had broke stand and was walking back to the truck where we would all meet up. The small hike takes no more than 20 minutes. As I began to walk back, the sun had set and the night was setting in. So it was dark by the time I hit the road that led to the truck. This was when I began to hear a knocking sound that appeared like it was coming from the direction where the clearing by my stand was. I paused for a second, initially disregarding the noise, and continued walking. Then only after my next 2 steps, I heard the knocking again from the same direction. So I stopped walking and listened for a few minutes to hear more knocking, but from a different direction and considerably further away. At this point, I began to feel uneasy. So I picked up the pace, and when I met up with my father and grandfather at the truck, I asked them if they had heard any knocking noises while in the woods, and both confirmed that they did, in fact, hear the noises. We drove around for a little to see if we could find something that might explain the noises, but both that drive and the rest of the week hunting remained uneventful. Okay, so there was a follow-up investigation report from BFRO investigator Paul Metecha. I hope I'm saying that right, Paul. So again, we always appreciate the BFRO's great follow-up work. And so he goes into describing, the witness describes the knocks as having a regular beat, equally spaced in cadence. There were about 4 or 5 knocks per set. Several sets were heard. When one knock set occurred, an answering knock sounded from another location. This occurred several times as the witness was walking back to the truck. The witness had an impression that it was following him, escorting him out, and he felt very uneasy about it. And so then this investigator actually says that he's familiar with the general area and he's hiked parts of Potter County, but he has not done any active Sasquatch field research there. The area is known for its high peaks and deep valleys. It's very remote, approximately 35 miles as the crow flies from the Allegheny National Forest and areas of Elk County where he's done active research, which has yielded positive Sasquatch identification. So that's very, very helpful. This encounter will also be on our encounter map. So hopefully, you guys find hopefully that's just something that can help somebody out there find a connection. And again, if this is an area that maybe you've done some research in or investigation and you have an encounter, we'd love to hear about it. So I am really looking forward to what is going to happen next year on the pod. Like I said, we've got a lot of really awesome guests lined up. If you have an encounter that you'd like to share, if you have any Christmas Bigfoot encounters or anything otherwise, because we're not just limited to Bigfoot over here in this weird space, please reach out and send us an email, or you can send us a DM on Instagram. It's going to be a little bit tricky probably from here on into the new year because of scheduling, all that stuff. So this account comes from Luke 2 in the Bible. So the Gospel of Luke chapter 2, the shepherds and the angels. And in the same region, there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone all around them, and they were filled with great fear. And the angel said to them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this will be a sign for you, and you will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes and laying in a manger." And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased." When the angels went away from them in heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us." And they went with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the baby laying in the manger. And when they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child. And all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. But Mary treasured up all these things, pondering them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen, and it had been told to them. So I just find that so fascinating that, I don't know, like even back, 2,000 years ago, there's a crazy encounter that somebody wrote down and, shared, and then other people were able to be witness to it. So I don't know, I find that a little bit encouraging as well. So you guys just keep sharing your encounters out there. We are definitely here for you at the pod. And if you have any other encounters that you want to share, or maybe you have some prayer requests this time of year, you're not alone out there. So you can send those in, and we'll hopefully see you in the new year, or maybe before that. So guys, just remember, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen. You have been listening to Sasquatch and Sourdough. I'm Christina, and thank you so much for tuning in. Sasquatch and Sourdough is so much more than just a podcast. We are a community of kindred spirits, united by our curiosity and fascination with the extraordinary. And we want to bring you into the conversation. So whether you've had a brush with the unexplainable, seen something that you can't quite wrap your head around, this is your space. We invite you to join us as we break bread and break down the barriers between the known and the unknown. If you want to share your story, you can email us at sasquatchandsourdough@gmail.com or send us a DM on Instagram. Until next time, remember, the truth is out there, God is with you, and everyone always ends up in the kitchen.